I'm going to make the live on others platform as well. Okay. So guys, welcome to Scholarhead Masterclass. And today we are going to start with learning the ASP.NET Core. So guys, welcome to Scholarhead Masterclass. And today we are going to start with learning the ASP.NET Core. So guys, welcome to Scholarhead Masterclass. So I hope you can hear me properly, I'm right? Can you confirm everyone? Okay, thank you for the confirmation. So let me share the screen. So I hope everyone can see my screen, am I right? Okay, so let's start it with the ASP.NET Core. My screen, am I right? So what is the ASP.NET Core? So first we will start to understand the .NET 5 and .NET 6 so that you having the understanding how the .NET platform has been changed in couple of years. And what is the ASP.NET Core, how the ASP.NET Core architecture looks like. So these various things we are going to discuss in today's session here. So let's start with what is .NET 5. So when it is coming to .NET 5, so .NET 5 came with one .NET vision. It means instead of having the three different versions of .NET, because before the .NET 5, we having the three different versions of .NET for building the different type of application. So we having the .NET Framework 4.x, we having the .NET Core 3.1, and we having the Mono. So these three versions of the .NET we having for building the different type of application. But starting from the .NET 5, now we having the single SDK, one base class library, and even we having the unified toolchain. So unified toolchain we having of software for building the any type of application over here. So these are the things we having here for doing the things. So when it is coming to the .NET 5, so .NET 5 is not only limited to building the web application, because before the .NET 5, or you can say when the .NET Core came initially, they just decided to support the web application in the UWP platform. Later on, they start adding the support for others one as well. So now starting from .NET 5, we having the one framework for building the cross-platform mobile application. We can build the web application, even we can build the Windows application as well. So it is not limited to only the web application, let's say to a particular set of family offered by the Microsoft here. We can build all the type of application using the .NET 5, what we do using the .NET Framework, what we do using the .NET Core, and what we do using the Mono, or you can say Xamarin over here. So these are the things we have in here. I hope you can hear me properly. So audio is clear to everyone, am I right? Okay. So when it is coming to .NET 6, so .NET 6 also having the same set of things if you're looking at here, but few more things they introduce here. So when it is coming to the .NET 6, so .NET 6 is going to came, or you can say it is actually come with .NET MAUI. So .NET MAUI is a new framework which is built on the top, which is actually, you can say it is a next version of Xamarin Form. which is helping us to build a cross-platform mobile application and the cross-platform desktop application. So this is a new thing we have in the .NET 6. All other things are available in .NET 5 as well. So when it is coming to building the web application, a cloud-based application, desktop application, games, IoT-based application, machine learning, using the ML.NET, Apache Spark. So these are the things we having over here. And these are the tools are available. So we having the Visual Studio for Windows, we having the Visual Studio for Mac, we having the Visual Studio Code, and we having the .NET CLI. So when it is coming to, do we have the IDE specific to the platform? So obviously we having this IDE that is specific to the Windows machine. This is the IDE that is specific to the Mac. If you're looking for the cross-platform IDE, which can run everywhere. So we having the VS Code. So VS Code is IDE which can be used anywhere, whether it's a web application, whether it's a Windows machine, Linux, Mac, and there you have to use .NET CLI. So .NET CLI is a tool chain which is helping us to build our .NET Core based application from anywhere. It is not only limited to the Windows and Mac and Linux, everywhere VS Code and the .NET CLI can be used to build the .NET Core based application. So guys, here whenever I'm saying the .NET Core, so my intention is here, I'm speaking about .NET 5 and .NET 6. Because .NET 5 and the .NET 6 are nothing. These are the next version of .NET Core. Because when it is coming to the .NET Core 3.1, so Microsoft decided to have the word core. But starting from the .NET 5, they decided to exclude the word core. Let's say they are not willing to call it, let's say .NET Core 5, but let's say .NET Core 6. They're just calling it simple .NET 5 and the .NET 6. So meaning of .NET 5 is it is .NET Core 5, in fact. So formally it is .NET Core 5. And one more thing you need to understand, you might be thinking directly from the .NET Core 3.1, we having the .NET 5. We don't have the release for .NET Core 4.x. The reason behind it, we already having the .NET Framework 4.x. That is a quite popular framework for building the different types of .NET application. So that's why they decided to skip the release of .NET Core 4.0. And now they decided to release directly 5.0 version. And they decided to leave the word core as well with the naming convention. So that's why they called this a .NET 5. Now we having the .NET 6. And one more thing you need to understand here, every year Microsoft decided to release a new version of .NET. So .NET 6 they released in the November 2021. This year they released .NET 7. Even .NET 7 already preview for released. So till November you will have the .NET 7. Next year you will have the .NET 8. The next year you will have the .NET 9. So every year you will have a new version of .NET with the new set of features, with the new things over there. So I hope it is clear to everyone how the Microsoft is going to release the new version of .NET. So every year in November you will have a new version of .NET. So do you have any queries so far? If you have any query, please do ask. If you don't have, we can proceed further. Okay, thank you for the confirmation. If the things are clear to everyone. Okay. So when it is coming to ASP.NET Core, this is the way how the ASP.NET Core has been evolved. So initially Microsoft came with the classic ASP for building the web application here. So we having the classic ASP for building the website. Later on, Microsoft they do the ASP.NET Web Form for building the web application, where we having the drag and drop support, where we having the server controls. So using this, we can build the web application. Later on, Microsoft introduced the ASP.NET MVC 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And when they introduce the MVC 3 at the same time, they introduce the web page 1, then web page 2 and web page 3. It is also available for building the smaller website. And when they introduce the MVC 4, the same time they introduce the web API 1, then web API 2, when they introduce the MVC 5 over there. So this is the way how they introduced the MVC, web pages, and the web API for building the UI as well as REST API. So when it is coming to building the UI, so these two things we use for building the UI, and this one we use for building the API. So before the ASP.NET Core, we having the three different style. So two style was for building the UI and one style was building the API. It means we having the three set of DLLs. So we having a separate page life cycle, you can say, or you can say the request pipeline for MVC separately. We having the different request pipeline for web pages. We having the different request pipeline for the web API. So we having the different DLL. We having the separate pipeline to serve the MVC pages, to serve the web pages, and to serve the API. But starting from the ASP.NET Core, they just combine all these three style into the one style. It means now we having the unified style. It means we having the one set of DLL, we having the same request pipeline, whether you are building the MVC, whether you are building the web pages, whether you're building the API. So instead of having the three different set of DLL, three different set of request pipeline, now we having the only one request pipeline, one DLL to serve the MVC purpose, to serve the web API purpose, and to serve the web pages. And when it is coming to the what is the latest version of ASP.NET Core MVC, so it is 6.0, which I will explain to you. And we don't have the 4.0 release. The reason behind it, we already having the .NET Framework 4.x. So that's why Microsoft skip the release of .NET Core 4.0 and directly they introduce the .NET 5. I hope it is clear to everyone. So when it is coming to the MVC core, first need to understand what is the MVC. So MVC is a pattern which is helping us to build the nowadays web application. So whenever you're using the MVC pattern with ASP.NET Web Form 4.x, it means you're talking about ASP.NET Core. You are talking about the ASP.NET MVC. That is on the top of .NET Framework 4.x. When I'm saying the MVC pattern with .NET Core, it is ASP.NET Core MVC. It's simple. So a style of writing the code would be same, but the underlying framework would be changed over there. And if you're comparing the ASP.NET MVC and ASP.NET Core MVC, so two major differences you will find out over there. One major difference is ASP.NET MVC is limited to the Windows application. You can see the Windows-based machine. It means I can build only ASP.NET MVC 5 application with Windows only. Even I can host it only the Windows server only. When it is coming the ASP.NET Core MVC, so these applications we can build from Linux, Windows, and Mac. Even we can host them also on the Linux and Windows. So ASP.NET Core MVC is cross-platform. ASP.NET MVC is not. Okay. And the second difference is here, the ASP.NET Core MVC performance is far better than ASP.NET MVC 5. Even Microsoft having a official information where they mention the ASP.NET Core MVC can serve 2300% more requests per second as compared to the ASP.NET MVC. Or you can say as compared to the ASP.NET 4.6 over there. So it's a huge difference. So that's why now companies are investing in the ASP.NET Core MVC so that they can take the benefit of ASP.NET Core performance as well as .NET Core performance. I hope it is clear to everyone. So do you have any other query? Okay. So when it is coming to the ASP.NET Core, so ASP.NET Core is an open source and a cross-platform framework which is helping us to build the UI as well as API. It is having a built-in dependency injection. It is having the lightweight and module restrictive request pipeline. And we don't need to set up anything locally. All the things can be downloaded here through the new web packages. And even it is having a built-in support for the single page application. So if you're willing to build the Angular, React, and the Vue.js application, we can build it simply over there. So the same thing I told you here, the ASP.NET Core can serve 2300% more requests per second as compared to the ASP.NET 4.6. So performance-wise, it is very, very good as compared to the existing one. So that's why the people are now focusing on the ASP.NET Core more simply. So this is the ASP.NET 6 web stack we having here, where you can see the ASP.NET Core is not limited to MVC only. using the ASP.NET Core, I can use MVC pattern, I can use Razor pages here, I can use single page application, I can use Blazor here for building the UI. So these 4 styles are available for building the UI here. So whenever it is coming to building the single page application, let's say a full-fledged application using the Razor only, we can go ahead with Blazor. If you're willing to use Angular and the React as a front end, so we have in the single page application support. If you like the style of web form where we having a code behind file, where we having the UI file, you can go with the Razor pages. If you if you like the MVC button, we having the MVC button over there. Hold on. So these are the 4 options we having for building the web API, web UI. Then these are the options we having here for building the services. So we having the HTTP API, that is nothing, that is a web API. We having the SignalR and we having the gRPC. So these 3 options are available for building the API over there. And all of them are sharing these middleware. We having the middleware for routing, security, localization, cache. We having for session, health check, and these are the server where we can host them. Okay, and these are the various extensions for error logging. We having for configuration. We having the option, file provider, dependency injection. So this is the complete ASP.NET Core 6 stack is coming over there simply. So I hope it makes sense to everyone. Is it clear now more? I hope it is now more clear. Okay, thank you for the confirmation. I think there was an issue of the mic. I have changed it now. Okay. Okay, so let's see how we can create the ASP.NET Core application. So that I'm going to show you here. So I'm opening here Visual Studio. So as I said here, to get started with the .NET 6, you must have the Visual Studio 2022. We don't have the Visual Studio 2019. So Visual Studio 2019 does not have the support for the .NET 6, but in Visual Studio 2022, we having the support for the .NET 6 simply. So that I'm using here. So I'm opening here Visual Studio 2022 so that we can create the application. So here there is option available, create a new project. And here you can make a search for the template MVC. So this is my template ASP.NET Core Web App Model View Controller. So this template I'm selecting, that click on the next button here. Then define the project name. As a project name, I'm using here Web App MVC 6. Then I can define the location. So location, let's say I'm using here desktop. So this is my location. Now let's click on the next button here. And here when you will use the Visual Studio 2022, so by default you will get here .NET 6. But you can go ahead with here .NET 5 as well if you have set up it for .NET 5. If you have set up with .NET Core 3.1, we having the 3.1 as well. So how many people are having here Visual Studio 2022? Can you confirm through the chat window? I hope you have opened it and you are getting the MVC project. Have you created the MVC project there? Okay, thank you for the confirmation. So make sure you are creating the project along with me. So just open the Visual Studio 2022, then look for the template MVC, and then select the framework 6.0. And now let's click on the create button here. Okay, so I'm already having the project with the same name. Let me change the project name. Let's say Is Mvc May 6. Now click on the create button. Yes. So I have created the project here. So this is the way it's created here, ASP.NET Core MVC application here. So before proceeding further, let me explain the folder structure and the meaning of each file here so that you having the more clarity. So if you look at here, we are using here three folder, model, view, and controller. So in the models, we will add the object which we are going to use in our application. So when it is coming the models, so models are the domain objects in our application. Or you can say these are the presentation model here. And depending upon your requirement, you can have the models in different layer. So if you're having the business layer, you can have the business model. If you're having the data access layer, you can have the data model over there. So depending upon what is the layer you having, we can have the models. So here, this application is presenting to the presentation layer. It is a way to develop the presentation layer. So here, that's why I'm saying it's a presentation model. Then we having a controller. So controller is a place where we keep our presentation logic. So what are the button we having on a UI? So when you will click on that button, what will happen? Who will handle that button click? So that code I will write in my controller. So in the controller, we write always presentation logic. Then we having the views. So in the views folder, you will find out we having the many views file, which are corresponding to the some action, which are not corresponding to the some action, which we having here might be shared file. So if you're looking at here, corresponding to the home controller, we having a home folder here. And if you look at in the home controller, we having here action index. So this action index is mapping to this index file. This action privacy is mapping to the privacy file. But you might be thinking how this mapping is happening. So this mapping is happening because of this return view method. If you will look at here, the index action is returning a return view method. So what does it mean? In this return view method, you will look for a file which name is actually index here. Here it will look for a file which name is privacy. And here the corresponding to the home controller, we having a home folder. Similar way, if you will have any other folder, let's say account controller. So corresponding to the account controller, you having a account folder. And what are the action you having there? Let's say login, sign up. So corresponding to those action, you will have the file. As we having the file here for index as index here. For privacy, we having the privacy here. So these are the default mapping here as per the between the controller and the views here in the ASP.NET Core MVC. If you will look at here, we having a shared folder as well. So inside the shared folder, we keep those files which we can access anywhere. Let's say which are the common across the application here. So we having a layout page. So this layout page is just like we having a master view, or you can say we having a master page where we define the commonly used section. So you can see we having a header section here where we just putting the menu. We having the link for our services. We having the link for, let's say, login and the sign up. We having a footer section where we can define the footer of the website. So mainly if you're looking at here, this layout is actually dividing our application into mainly three sections. So this is my header section, this is my container, and this is my footer. So these three things we having. Even when it is coming to building any application, let me explain the real life example. So if you look at the .NET-tricks.com, let's say if you look at the scholarhead.com, you will find out these three things common. So if you will look at this is my header section where we having a menu, and this is my container. This is my container, and we having the same way footer as well. If you're looking at, if you will scroll down, so this footer is coming this way. So this is our footer we having over there. So mainly we having the three section on the website, and even this scholarhead.com we build using the ASP.NET Core 6. So do you know the scholarhead.com we build using the ASP.NET Core 6? We are using here Angular, we are using here React. Many framework we have used to build the scholarhead.com. The similar way we having the .NETX.com. So this is the way how we design the thing. So what we have done here, we are using here their layout, and they are in the layout page. We have defined the header separately, container as separately, and footer as separately. This way we have designed the website here. So same thing is mentioned over there. Then we having here underscore validation script partial. So whenever you are going to apply the client side validation to validate the user input on the client side, so we having here jQuery validate library, we having here jQuery validate unobtrusive library. So the combination of three library, jQuery, jQuery validate, and jQuery validate unobtrusive, is helping us to validate the user input on the client side. So on the underscore layout page, we already having the jQuery library reference, but these two we can serve whenever it is required. We having a common error page here, where we can display some common message to show to the user there is some error at the server side. So this is going to be rendered over there. Then apart from the shade folder, you will find out we having this underscore v start file. So this underscore v start file is actually helping us to serve the default layout, or you can say default master view for serving on application pages. So whenever you are willing to serve on application pages from this underscore layout, from this underscore v start, we serve it simply. Then we having here underscore v import. So this underscore v import is acting as a base view. So as we having the base class, similar way this underscore v import is acting as a base view page class. So what are the namespaces you are willing to use across the application, we can keep adding here. So you can see we having a namespace for the application, we having the namespace for the models, because models we will access on the UI, and we will access the tag helper over there. So instead of adding these three namespace again and again on each view page, we added to this underscore v imports file simply. We are using here .NET 6. So this is about model, view, and controller simply. Then we having here other files as well. So we having here app settings.json. So this file we use to define the app setting file. Like we having the database connection string, we having the address for the API, we can have a payment gateway information, many other things. So what other things are specific the environment, specific the production environment, we keep defining over here. Then we having a program.cs file. So starting from .NET 6, we having the program.cs file, which actually following the C# 10.0 features. In the C# 10.0, we having the top level statement. So to run the top level statement in the C# 10.0, we don't need to wrap up them inside the public static void main method. You can see I don't have public static void main method. Directly these statements we are running. So when we write the console.write line in the C#, so console.write line we used to show something on the console window. But that code we always wrap inside a public static void main. But starting from C# 10.0, you don't need to wrap up in the public static void main. We having a new concept, top level statement. So same thing is happening here. If you know already the .NET, ASP.NET Core 3.1 and ASP.NET Core 5, there we having a program, there we having a startup.cs file as well. And the startup.cs file, we having the two method, configure services method and configure method. So equivalent to the configure and the configure services method, we having these two sections here. So in here, in the section 1, what we have to do, we have to define all the service dependency. So service dependency can be have here, let's say you need to enable the session in the application that is a dependency of the application. You need to connect with your entity framework codes. We need to pass a connection string to the database context here. And you might be injecting some service dependency. You might having the repository, you might be having some services. So those dependency we register in the section 1 in this program.cs file. Then we having the middleware. So in the ASP.NET Core MVC, we having the middleware which are helping us to intercept the request and response. So sometimes it happens, I want to execute some logic before processing the request. I want to check the user authenticity. I want to check user permission. So I can write a middleware over there. So middleware is nothing. Middleware is just a simple function which is helping us to intercept the request. Or you can say, which is going to execute before processing the request. And there you will check something, whether the user is logged in or not. If user is logged in, then go ahead, then check the permission. If the user having the permission, then go ahead to process the things. We can have any other example. Let's say sometime it happens you having the old URL, and those old URL you want to map to the new one. So what you can do here, you can create a middleware to redirect your existing old URL to the new one over there. Even we having the many built-in middleware registration here. You can see we having a middleware for HTTPS redirection. So nowadays, what is happening everywhere, we are using the HTTPS, where we configure the SSL certificate. If somebody is accessing the website using the HTTP protocol only, let's say HTTP, we having the scholarhead.com. So this middleware will automatically redirect to HTTPS scholarhead.com. Then we having the static files. So one more folder I left here. We having this www root folder. So in ASP.NET Core MVC, we having the www root folder that they decided to serve the static content. So when we having the CSS, JavaScript file, we having the third-party library like jQuery, jQuery validation, Bootstrap, we keep adding over there. So who is actually configuring? This use static file middleware is helping us to serve the static file from this www root folder. And this is the only place by default available in ASP.NET Core MVC to serve the static file. If you're willing to serve the static file from some other folder, you cannot serve it by default until you will not define it in the program.cs file, like until you will not tell to the ASP.NET Core, this is the folder I'm going to use to serve the static file. So I hope www root folder is also clear to everyone. Then we having a middleware for routing. So obviously to serve anything in your ASP.NET Core MVC and in ASP.NET Core Web API, we need the routing concept. So routing is the first step in the request pipeline, which is going to figure out what to do with the incoming request. And based upon the incoming request pattern, it try to match what are the district pattern we having in the application. So what we do, usually we add many pattern over there. So this is the one default route we having, and this default route having a pattern. As per the pattern, we are passing the controller, we passing the action, then we passing the ID. So same way, whenever you are requesting a page in ASP.NET Core MVC, you have to pass the URL like this way. So pass controller, let's say account, then action, let's say /login. So it will serve the login action. Similarly, we can have the account /sign up. We can have, let's say, home/privacy. So this way the things are going to be served. And make sure you having at least one route in your ASP.NET Core application to serve your application pages. So if you don't have any route, you cannot serve anything. You cannot serve anything. So make sure you having at least one route. So that's why when we create our ASP.NET Core application, so Visual Studio by default create a default route for the application so that we can serve our application pages. And this is the reason only you will have by default a controller home there, and you will have a by default action there index, so that we can serve the home page or application. So this is about this program.cs file. I explain everything over there. I hope it is clear to everyone. So do you have any query, or shall we go ahead? So good to go ahead, everyone. Okay, thank you for the confirmation here. So let's go ahead. So we have done with the explanation of ASP.NET Core MVC folder structure over there. Now I'm just going to show the way how we can create a login page and how we can apply the validation. Before that, let me explain the ASP.NET Core request pipeline, and let's differentiate it from the existing one, so that you having the more clarity here how the ASP.NET Core request pipeline is different from the existing one. So if you look at the ASP.NET web form, so there we having the client, let's say browser, we use IES there for making the request, and from the IES we return the response simply. So this way we do the thing. So here we having these default events here, where we having a begin request, authenticate request, authorize request. So many methods are there, which are going to be the part of the ASP.NET web form pipeline here. But when it is coming to the ASP.NET Core, so ASP.NET Core does not have any dependency on the IES. Here we can use any web server. It can be the Apache Tomcat, it can be the Nginx, anyone you can use here to host your ASP.NET Core application. And even these servers are acting as a reverse proxy server, or you can say the delegation server. They are not actually processing the request, they delegating the request to the internal Castile web server. So in ASP.NET Core MVC, we having a Castile web server that is responsible to handle the request and generating the response. So Castile is a cross-platform web server which is helping us to process the request and finally generating the response. So you can see there is a difference in the ASP.NET Core request pipeline. Even one more thing need to understand here, we don't have here any predefined set of events, any predefined set of steps, which every time are going to be executed as we having in web form. In web form, we having a predefined set of methods, we having the predefined set of steps to serve the request. But here, the complete pipeline in ASP.NET Core MVC is customized. So it would be decided by you, how many middleware you are willing to add into the request pipeline, how many you are not. So depending upon what are the middleware you have added, the pipeline would be decided. Even if you look at in our ASP.NET Core application project, where we having this one. So if you will see how many middleware we added a middleware for HTTPS redirection, static file, routing, authorization. So these are the middleware are going to be executed. If let's say I will remove some of them, let's say if I will remove this one, if I will remove this one, so this will have only two middleware. So here the pipeline is completely customized. We don't have the predefined set of events and methods which are going to be executed over here. So this is about the pipeline I just explained here in ASP.NET Core MVC. I hope it makes sense to everyone. Clear? So do you have any query? Okay, now let me explain here a few more things which are important again. So as I said, we are using here MVC pattern. So what do you mean by the MVC pattern? Let me explain here. So whenever you are building any web application, so what are the main component we having in a web application? If you will look at in this picture, we having the data, we having the logic, and we having the UI. So these three are the main component of building a web application. And it does not mean whether you are using Java, .NET, PHP, everywhere you have to manage these three things over there. Then we having here data, how we hold the data. We hold the data using the object. Logic we write inside a class, and UI is nothing. UI is a document object model. So guys, there is a difference between the object and a class here. Can somebody tell me the difference between object and class? Who will tell? Can somebody explain the difference between object and class? Okay, let me tell you a different definition of object and class, how you will understand like this is my object and this is my class. So for this one, you need to understand first thing, when it is coming to objects, so objects are the real world entities in our application. So let's take the example of we are building a e-commerce application. Let's say we are building Flipkart, we are doing, let's say, Amazon.com. So what are the real world object over there? So we having the customer, we having the product. So how we represent this customer and product? We actually represent them with the alphabet class. You will create a customer class, you will create a product class. So those classes are nothing. Those classes are actually object classes. So you can see here we having the object class and we having the logical class. So now just think about now this customer you are willing to add into database. So what you will do here, you will create a one class for customer operation where you will add, where you will define the many method. Let's say add customer, get customer, update customer, delete customer by ID. So a class which is containing these set of methods are actually known as a logical class. So things are different here, object class and logical class. In simple language, you can say the object class is a class which contain mainly properties. A logical class is a class which contain methods where we have written some logic to perform some database operation, to perform some business logic over there. Okay, so that's why when we talking about to hold the data of an object, what you will do, you will create the customer class object where you will have customer ID 101, name Mohan, address Noida, contact number something else. Similar way, you will have another customer object for doing that thing. So that customer class is actually an object class. When it is coming to adding the customer into database, then we having a logical class where you have written some method to perform the database operation. I hope it makes sense now, the difference between object and class. So don't say object is a blueprint for the class or object is an instance of the class. No. Then we having the UI. So UI is here document object model. So when it is coming to present data to the user, how we present the data? We present the data with the alphabet HTML markup. So have you think sometime what are the HTML you are writing, that HTML is going to render everywhere exactly same. It does not mean whether you are using Internet Explorer, Mozilla, whether you are using the Opera, whether you're using the Safari or Chrome, any browser you are using, my HTML exactly looking same. Why it is behaving? The reason is behind, there is some standard behind the scene, which is actually forcing the Chrome, which is forcing the Mozilla to render the HTML exactly in the same way. So DOM is actually a document object model. This is the name you have heard about, but it's not only document object model. It is actually a standard. It is providing a set of APIs which are implemented by the Chrome, Firefox, Opera, Safari, and Internet Explorer to render our content for HTML, to render our content for the XML. So that's why our HTML looks exactly same. Because in the market, we having the many vendors of the browser. But how those vendors are following the same thing? Because of this standard. And who has decided that these standard? These standard decided by the W3C organization. If you know about the W3C, they're having official website. There you can find out the information about DOM in detail. Okay, so don't think it's a DOM tree. DOM tree is a different. DOM is a different. So DOM is a standard that is followed by the all the people simply over there. So when it is coming to the MVC, so in MVC models are domain objects, controller is a class, and view is DOM now. So I hope it makes sense how the MVC is helping us to manage our web application component in better way. Because before that, we have to create the UI, we have to create the code main file. We don't have the clean separation of concern. But starting from MVC, we having a SOC properly. Because whenever you are building the website or web application, we have to deal with mainly three things: data, logic, and UI. So data, you are here managing or holding using the model. Logic, you are writing inside the controller. And here we are writing the presentation logic. Remember it. In UI, so whatever the UI, let's say data presentation we are doing using the view. I hope it makes sense now. So do you have any queries so far, or shall we go ahead? So this is the information we have been about the models. So as I said, models are the domain objects in our application, which are used to represent the real world entities and objects depending upon what are the various layers you are having. Let's say data model, business model, service model, and the presentation model. Then we having the view. So view is used to define the UI of the web page. So what are the data you're building to represent, we represent with the help of view. And this is the mapping, which I explained to you already. And these are the different types of views we having. So we having the standard view. So what are the HTML markup we having, where we just showing the some static information. That is an example of the standard view. So in our application, we having the privacy page, we having the index page. So these are the example of standard view. Then we having the strongly type view. So strongly type view having a dependency on a model class. So here you have to first create a login model. There you will have the username property. There you will have the password property here. And based upon that, we are getting the text box for username. We are getting the text box for password. So this is an example we having here for strongly type view. So strongly type view having a dependency on a model class simply. Then we having here partial view. So when it is coming to reuse a section of the page, so that section we can reuse with the help of partial view. So you can see here, we having this partial view. Guys, please don't draw anything over there on the screen. Okay. So the thing is here, we having the partial view. So partial view, this is the header section we having here, where I'm going to reuse the header, where we having the menu over there. So this is my underscore header, which I'm calling here using the partial tag. Similar way, I can call here footer. So we having the partial tag here for calling the footer simply. So whenever there is a requirement to reuse a section of the page, so their partial view always helps us. Where we having the header, where we having the footer simply. And this is my section. That section is going to be changed based upon the routing. If you are requesting the login page, so login page will enter. If you are requesting the sign up page, so sign up page will enter here simply. Your nesting you can do of the partial view. Nesting is possible. Then we having the layout. So layout is here, a section where we define the things. So if you're looking at here, this is my layout where I define everything. So I hope it is clear to everyone what are the different types of views we having in the ASP.NET Core MVC. Clear? Okay. Let me explain about the controller. What is a controller? As I said, controller is a class that is used to define the presentation logic. And by default, controllers we keep inside the controllers folder, and they having the controller as a suffix. But in ASP.NET Core MVC, it is not mandatory. You should have controllers only in the controller folder. they can be the part of the any other folder as well. Even they cannot have the controller word as a suffix, but make sure the class which you are creating as a controller must inheriting the controller class. So inheritance is necessary for creating the controller, but controller word suffix is not necessary. But in the older version of ASP.NET MVC 5, it was necessary. Now it is not necessary in ASP.NET Core MVC. This is the things also need to understand. So the controller of the ASP.NET Core MVC is different from the MVC 5. In MVC 5, it was mandatory to define all the controllers inside the controllers folder. They must have the controller as a suffix. But starting from ASP.NET Core, these are optional. If you want to follow this naming convention, you can follow. Otherwise, you can skip it. Simple. So this is about the controller, and this is the mapping we having for controller to the folder available in the views, and what are the action we having there. That action also we can map there simply. And inside the controller, we having the methods. So we having the two types of method here. So let's take the example of this home controller here. This is my home controller, where we having the index section, where we having the add method here. So can you tell me here, is it a regular method or is it a action method? How you will differentiate which is my regular method, which is my action method over there? How the differentiation is going to be done? Can somebody tell me? Okay. Some people are saying the return type should be action result. Okay. Any other thought you have? Okay, so when it is coming to the action, how you will define what is actually the definition of the action? So you need to first understand what is the action. So action is a method inside a controller class which is responding to the user activity. So any method which is responding to the user activity will known as here action method. So here, when it is coming to the MVC, all the method which having the public access modifier, they will be actually here action method. So this is having the public access modifier. This is also having the public access modifier. So both are the action method here, because I can call them through the URL. Any method which is not having the public as access modifier, if let's say in this picture, we having a protected access modifier here, and we have decorated it using the known action attribute. So in this case, both are only regular method, not the action method, because these two methods I cannot call from the URL. So anything which is not public or which is decorated by the known action attribute will behave only as a regular method. But anything which is public inside a controller always be action method, and I can call it using the URL simply. I hope it makes sense now. Now the next important thing we have being the action result. What is the action result in ASP.NET Core MVC? So in ASP.NET Core MVC, we don't have only one type of result class. We having the many types of result classes here. So what are these many classes? So if you're looking at here, we having one base class, that is action result class here. Then others are the child one. So if you will look at here, we having the empty result if you're not willing to return any data. If you're willing to return the JSON data, we having the JSON result. If you're willing to return a content, so content can be a string, the content can be a in some other format. If you're willing to return any file, we having the file result. To return a component, we having view component. To return a view result, to return a view, we having view result. To return a partial view, we having the partial result. And to go from one page to another page, we having this redirect to action result. So these are the many result classes which are inherited, which are actually inheriting this action result class. And all these classes we're looking at here, many of them are implementing the iAction result interface. So here it is implementing directly. Even they are implementing through the action result class as well. So this action result is a new to the ASP.NET Core. It was not in ASP.NET MVC 5. In MVC 5, we having only action result class, but here in ASP.NET Core, we having the action result interface. So what is happening here, when it is coming to the return type, let me show you one more thing here. If I'm looking at the code, this is my home controller. And what I'm doing inside my home controller, I'm adding here a simple method, public integer add, where I'm going to pass two parameters, int x, int y, this one. Now let me return here the sum of these two numbers. I will return here x plus y. So this is my regular method simply. So this regular method return type is integer, am I right? But if I will make the return type as an object, so do you think it is a recommended return type for this method? If let's say I make it object, so that time also it will run fine without any issue, without any challenge. But do you think it is a recommended return type? Guys, can you confirm through the chat, everyone? So recommended return type is here integer because I know what data this method is going to return. So same thing is here when it is coming to the action in ASP.NET Core MVC. So this is actually returning a return view method, and this view method return type is view result. So ultimately my action index is returning a view result class object, and iAction result is implemented by the view result class. So recommended return type should be here this one, view result, because I know the exact return type of this method. As I know here exact return type, similar way I know it. But sometimes you can have a case where this action might be returning the different types of result. It might be going to the same view. It might be going to the some other action. There can be the redirect to action. So in that case, action result is perfectly valid. So whenever your action method is going to return different types of result based upon the condition, so there you should use a common return type, that is iAction result interface here. But whenever you are sure my action method always return view, always return JSON data, always return a specific data. So you should always prefer the specific return type for that action. But if you are not sure about the exact return type for the action, you can go ahead with the generic one. You can say over there. I hope it is makes sense. But it is not recommend, the object is not recommended because unnecessary you are doing the boxing unboxing there. If you were return here directly integer, there is no boxing unboxing. Am I right? Same thing is applicable to view result as well and iAction result as well. So this is about the action result you should know here. I hope it makes sense now. Okay, now let's understand the communication between model, view, and controller. That is important to know. So when it is coming to serve any URL in ASP.NET Core MVC, how the user interaction is start. So user interaction is start from the controller end here. Even in MVC pattern, controller play the key role, or you can say this is the main component of the system. So what is the role of this controller? So controller receive the input from the end user and it process it with the help of model, and what the result is prepared at the controller action label. That result it render on the view so that we can present the data. So this is the step 1 here. This is the step 2 here we having. Then we having the 3. So finally, this is the way how the flow is happening here. Then when the view will render into the browser, so users start interacting with the UI. Just think about here, as per the URL, we are going to update the product information. So obviously product will have the unit price, product will have the description, product will have something else. So now the user willing to update the product detail. After updating the product detail, user obviously will click on the update button, and that data again will goes to the controller to update the detail into database. And finally, we'll show the message either on the same page. Let's say detail has been updated. Either you will show the message on the different UI. So this is the complete workflow we having in model, view, and controller. And you might be seeing between model and view, we having the dash arrow. We don't have the solid arrow. It means we can create the view without creating a model. It is not necessary to create a model to create the view page. But whenever you are creating the strongly type view, that time only model is necessary to create. But if you are creating a standard view, and the standard view, it is not necessary to create the model class here. But to render a view, we need to have a controller here. That's why we having the solid arrow. Even view and controller can communicate to each other directly. View and model cannot communicate to each other directly. They always do the communication through the controller. So this is the way how the communication is happening between the component of the MVC pattern here. Is it clear to everyone? And these are the differences we having here in ASP.NET MVC 5 and in ASP.NET Core. If somebody already know the .NET Core, sorry, the MVC 5, so these are the differences you need to know here. So here we having only HTML helper. Here we having the tag helper as well as HTML helper. Here we can follow the web form syntax, razor syntaxes. But here we can follow only razor syntax. Here we having the partial view. Here we having the partial view and the view component. Because in MVC 5, we having the 2 types of partial view, a static partial view and dynamic partial view. So static partial view are here as it is, but dynamic partial view, they're replaced by the view component. It is a typical web application. Here we having the global.asx web.config file. It is a typical console application which is start from the program.cs file and public static void main method. And in the ASP.NET MVC 5, we having the global.asx web.config file. Here we having the startup.cs file and program.cs file. And in place of web.config, we having the setting.json. Here we use modules and handler to intercept the request. Here we use middleware to intercept the request. Here we can host it only on IIS, but here we host it with the help of Castle Web Server. That is a cross-platform one. And it is limited to only Windows machine, development as well as hosting. That's not limited to Windows. It can be done on all these 3 platforms. So it is cross-platform over there. So these are the differences you need to know about this one simply. So guys, I hope it is now clear about the MVC pattern, how the MVC pattern we can follow in the ASP.NET Core MVC. Make sense to everyone? And as I promised to everyone, I will show you the way how we can create the project here. So we having a project here which I created by the our student in our training program, because we offer the training on ASP.NET Core. So what are the training program we having? In the training program, we build the live project. So that live project I'm just showing, I'm just sharing with you, so that you having the understanding which type of live project our student build while the training. So we having a e-Pizza Hub website, and in this e-Pizza Hub website, we build a online food delivery application, like we having the Domino's, or we having the any others as well. But it will look like similar to the Domino's. So if you look at the project architecture, in the project architecture, we having a proper Dell layer, we having a models, we having the repository, we having the services, and we having the UI. So when it is coming to build anything in the real life, we have to follow a proper project architecture. So when it is coming the project architecture, is a project architecture we are following here. So we having the entities at the core, which are we mapping to the database. We having the Dell layer, which we have written using the repository pattern. We having the services, we have written our business logic, and we having the web UI, where we have written the presentation logic. So as per this project architecture, the layers has been created here. So you can see we having the entities here, we having the SQL script. This is a step-by-step way design. It's not a ready-made project, because such project we develop from scratch. Then we having the models. What are the various models we are going to use in our application? And this is the repository pattern we are using here, where we have defined the interfaces for order repository, shopping cart repository, user repository. This is the way code is written. And these are the services: authentication, card service, catalog service, and many others over there. Now we having the controller, and we having the area. So we have created the user module. We have created the admin module. Because whenever you're working on the real project, we never write everything a root label. We have to manage many modules. So same thing is happening here. We having the many modules to create. And now we having some helper classes, where we created the helper class for template extension. We created the helper class for, let's say, user accessor, custom attribute. These are many helper classes. These are the models which we are using for login page, sign up page. And these are the many views. So now let me run the application so that you will understand how the UI is looking here. Oh. I think there is a one space issue. Let me fix it. I'm removing it here simply. So now let's say I'm running the code here. And guys, if you're coming to the Scholarhead YouTube channel, I request to everyone, please do subscribe to the channel, so that the information about such webinar you will get to know. Because in the upcoming, we having many webinars there. So I'm running the application here. Let me show you the UI, how it is looking. It is looking the UI as we having the UI for the Domino's, where we having a proper header, where we having a proper listing for the pizza, whatever they are offering to us. Now let's click on it to cart here. It's a notification is coming. The item is added to the shopping cart. The second item, I can go to the cart here. Is the cart is coming. From here, I can increase and decrease the quantity. Okay, I think there is some issue with this one. Okay, so this is the item is coming over there. Now I can do checkout. Let me do checkout here. Now it is asking for the login. So let me do mention the login user @gmail.com. Then we having a password. Let me mention the password. So this it is coming to the checkout now. Now it is asking for the delivery address. So street 6, locality Noida, and 301, city, phone number. I'm passing any random data here. Then continue. So this is the payment gateway is coming. So we have integrated the Razorpay payment gateway, because what are the online website we having which are taking the online payment, we need to integrate a payment gateway. So now let me use here, let's say shopping. I'm using here the debit card, and I can mention a debit card. So I can use here Razorpay test card. So they having the test card which I can use to use it. So this is my test card which I'm putting here. Okay, this is the one I can use here. Expiry greater than today. Let's say 23. CVU number 1 to 3 here. Now let me pay the amount. It is asking for OTP. Just to mention here OTP, and payment has been done this way. So this is the way complete flow we have designed for the online shopping site here, so that you actually having the real understanding how to build an end-to-end real world application. Whether it's a online food delivery project, whether it's a e-commerce application like we having the Flipkart, we having the Amazon.com, or whether we having the EdTech platform, until you will not build such workflow, you will not able to understood it. You will not able to understand it. Okay. So this is the way I just mentioned here. So when it is coming to building any project, so when it is coming to building any project, so we having mainly 3 cornerstones of the project. First is about the planning. So make sure you need to understand the real problem, because every software is going to solve a real problem. So understand that real problem the software is going to solve. Then understand the domain and the subdomain. So each project belongs to a particular domain. If we're taking the example of this website, it belongs to the online food delivery domain. So in all the online food delivery domain, the way of doing the business is same. Similar way, when it is coming to EdTech, so we have EdTech, let's say scholarhead.com, where we are giving the online training, where the people come to us, they join our training program. So we having a proper LMS. Through the proper LMS, we provide the video, we provide the PPT. What is the PPT I'm sharing with you? We provide the source code, we take the assignment over there. We having a separate private community for discussing the doubts. So what are the business actually a company is doing, so that business having a way to do it. So understand the domain, the ecosystem. In the ecosystem, what are the things are involved? If I taking the example of the scholarhead.com, in our ecosystem, we having the support team, we having the salesperson, we having the mentor, we having the student. So these are the people involved in our ecosystem. Similar way, we having the people involved in the other ecosystem. In the online food delivery, we having the delivery boy, we having the customer, we having the chef, we having the customer care support executive over there, we having an account department over there. So many people are involved in the ecosystem. So understand how actually they do the things, so that, because ultimately you're going to automate what are the tasks is going to be done manually, it is now going to be done through the software. So until you don't have that task understanding, that flow understanding, you cannot automate it. Then decide the architecture. So you have to follow anti-architecture, clean architecture, microservices, technology you have to use Angular, ASP.NET Core, Web API, SQL Server, whatever you have decided. So one of the technology you have to decide is simply Then when it is coming to building a new project, so these are the things you need to know. You should know, first of all, the technology fundamental. Usually the people know it, they can learn. You should know the bugs, how to fix them. But what they do, they actually don't try to create such workflow. If you're looking at a new project, a project is nothing, it's a combination of many workflows. So please try to create a workflow for login, sign up, shopping cart, reports, emails. Because until you will not create the workflow, you will not have the experience, you will not have the confidence to work in the real life. It is very, very important. Perform the database operation, do the paging, sorting, understand the SQL Server, understand where to store the unstructured data. So these are the things are important if you're willing to be a master in a particular technology. And these things are not, guys, limited to the ASP.NET Core. Same thing you can apply anywhere, whether it's a .NET, whether it's a Angular, React, Node.js, everywhere same thing you have to follow. Then understand your project requirement. And when it is coming to writing the code, so do you know what is the heart of a project? From where everything is going to be happen. Or like say around that, the entire workflow happen. Do you know the secret? Because you will find out many people are the member of the core team. Many people are only just working as a normal developer. So do you know the difference between a normal developer and the developer who actually the member of the core team? Do you know the secret? The reason behind it, that person actually knowing the database, tables and their relationship. So whenever we are taking a KT from a user, and whenever we are actually exploring a particular project, we try to understand the workflow through the UI only. We never look at the tables label, how the tables are connected, how the data is flowing at the table level. So until you will not understand the workflow at the database table level, you will not have the confidence. You cannot be a part of the core team in that project. It is very, very important things. Then after understanding the database tables and their relationship, you can write the code, you can write the logic, and you can do the things over there. I hope it makes sense to everyone. So by having all these understanding, this project has been designed. This is the ePizza Hut project, which we have designed simply. So now guys, do you have any query regarding this one? Because I have done from my side for this master class. I appreciate your time. I hope you have learned many things in this session. So if you have any query, any doubt, you can ask over here. I'm here. The live streaming I'm stopping now on YouTube and others.